Welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we have a guest, Angela, who's going to share her personal story and her story about Brian. What makes the story about Brian so sad is his untimely death. But what makes today's show so powerful is the path through the landscape of addiction that Angela's life has taken. Let's meet Angela. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, but...
Yeah, I appreciate you trying. Let's start off by talking about growing up. You were a kid in Iowa, and some of the things that your first experiences as you've unraveled your life to look at how they might have influenced you when you were young.
For the first 10 years of my life, my dad was an alcoholic. I didn't know anything differently. Seemed like it was a normal thing for families to, my parents would go to the bar like almost every weekend. And sometimes they'd actually take us along to, like, if it was like a supper club. And so it just seemed like it was a normal part of life until my dad got to the point where he couldn't stop. You know, it was one of those things where it was affecting his day-to-day life. It wasn't just on the weekends anymore, it was every day. And he started having lots of problems in bars and at home.
How old were you when this stuff was happening?
I was young. We finally moved up to northern Iowa when I was 10 years old. And that's when my dad, it took about 2 weeks after we left for my dad to finally say, I can't do this anymore, and he put himself in treatment. He physically did it himself. It was no, it was kind of an ultimatum that my mother gave him, but he physically did it himself. So,
and you remember this, you remember how it felt.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole treatment thing was difficult. You know, never experienced something like that before. Going in front of lots of people and trying to talk about, you know, your feelings as a child, and trying to tell your dad that, you know, he wasn't always the greatest person to you, even though, you know, he was your dad. So, you know, that was tough. But when he got out, you know, as a family, we all did different things. Like, my dad would go to AA, my mom would go to Al-Anon, and us kids would go to what they called Alateen, I think is what they called it. And we did that for quite a few years. But then I don't know, it was like all of a sudden, they didn't have those meetings anymore. And so we just stopped going.
What about your dad? How did he do?
You know, he always had the alcoholic attitude, let's say. But he did very well. He's been sober for about 33 years, I believe. So he's, you know, they always say you're in recovery, you know, but, you know, so I guess he's in recovery, but I would say he's there.
Well, so you got to see both the bad side and a little bit of the good side.
Yeah.
Then, now what happened when you started going to high school and things like that?
You know, there was always a lot of peer pressure, but when I was in high school, I was the good girl. I got good grades. I was in almost every activity there was to be in. And I worked. So I didn't really have a lot of time for the parties and that type of lifestyle. My sister, on the other hand, she was more of that type of, she was the partier. She didn't care for school, things like that. And I was always trying to change her. And then when I went away to college, that's when I changed. And that's when I started, you know, getting involved in drinking. And I got really depressed at college, and I had to take some time off. And I guess you could say in a roundabout way, I drank my sorrows away, so to speak. And then when I think I was 20, me and a friend went to a party one night. It wasn't really a party, it was just a bunch of guys that I knew from high school. And we went to their house, and me and the other girl had been drinking for a while. And we went to the house, and we just thought we were going there and gonna watch movies and then, go home. Well, evidently I had too much to drink, and I passed out. And she had to leave for a little bit, and when she came back, she said I was passed out in the chair. And so she left me there because the guy said it was okay, that I could just sleep there. And I woke up in the morning, or in the middle of the night, with half my clothes off. And I could tell that things had happened. And all I wanted to do at that point was to get away.
Let's take a little break. When we return, we'll hear more about Angela's story. We'll see you after the break.
Many teenagers don't understand the dangers and effects of marijuana use. Now it's time for Just the Facts, ma'am. An IQ is a score determined from standardized tests to determine intelligence. An IQ of 100 puts the average person in the 50th percentile of intelligence. Regular marijuana use during teenage years can cause a long-term 8-point drop in IQ. A loss of 8 IQ points drops them to the 29th percentile. For more information, go to drugfreeiowa.org.
After Kylie used coke, she stopped caring about school, friends, or who she had to steal from to get more of it. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
Sleeping in, Dad?
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Hi, I'm Carnell. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time online, streaming shows, downloading files, and Skyping with family. That's why Mediacom recently boosted many of our internet speeds at no extra cost. We call it Always Faster Internet because we're always improving to meet your needs. And when you combine improved speeds with hassle-free Wi-Fi, you get super fast speeds all over the house. So more gets done even faster. The power to make a good thing even better, the power to simplify.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're joined by Angela and her story about living in a world of addiction. And she's sharing the story of how some powerful forces can shape a life when facing addiction. Welcome back.
Thank you. After that episode, all I wanted to do is leave. Because I just didn't know what was for me anymore in Britt, and so I was ready to get out. So I found an opportunity, and I moved out west, and it did change my life to a degree. But I was making money, I was doing good, and then all of a sudden it was like everything just hit rock bottom, and I lost everything. And at the same time, I wound up pregnant with my daughter. And I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time, so I moved back. And things were good for quite a while. And then as Abby was growing, as she was getting older, it was like, I felt kind of like, I felt that failure inside, and I turned to alcohol again. And so I started drinking. I started getting, I mean, not like drinking during the day, but at night, going to the bar, hanging out with friends. And at some point, wound up getting an OWI. And that was really the big thing for me. Once that happened, it was like, this can't happen again. So at some point after that, it was like, I have to change my life.
You had your daughter. You got the powerfully bad reality check.
Yes.
And that was enough to get you started and back again. Because you already learned with dealing with your dad that you could change. Yes.
Well, and I knew that for some reason that I could, I don't know, I felt that I could control it with me. And I'm not saying that everybody can do that, I don't know, but I knew that I just had to stop. And I mean, I'm not saying that I don't ever take a drink, but I just don't do the things that I did at that point. And I knew Brian for years, many years. And back when I used to go to the bar a lot, he used to come in and he would always try to ask me out. And at that time, I don't know if I was just thinking because he was 4 years younger than me, and I don't know if I was thinking that he was too young for me and he wasn't, he was just looking for a one-night stand, or if at that time I was seeing somebody else and just wasn't interested at that time. But I always liked him. I always had that connection with him. And then years go by because I wouldn't give him a chance, and he never let me live that down. But years go by after I had many bad relationships. We got reconnected. And I think you can honestly say that I fell hard. I fell because he had the biggest heart that I had ever experienced in a man.
Thank you for sharing the story at this point. And when we get back from the break, we'll take an inside look into Brian's life and its tragic ending. Stay with us. You don't want to miss this.
You may have heard about synthetic drugs in the news and the fact that more Iowa teenagers who use them are ending up in the hospital. Synthetic drugs can be dangerous, but you can help prevent the threat. Learn about synthetic drugs and talk with your kids now. For sale does not mean safe to use.
Get help at drugfreeiowa.org.
Thousands of businesses have switched to Mediacom Business for fast and reliable internet, unlimited nationwide calling, and popular TV channels with sports package upgrades. And now, with our new business mobile data, they stay connected on the go. Mediacom Business is the simple and easy way for businesses to get all their telecommunication services from one provider, all for just $99.95 a month. Get a free mobile hotspot device with all 4 services. Mediacom Business. How can we help you?
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. Angela's experienced a lot of bad in her life, and she's working to make sense of an often nonsensical world when addiction rears its ugly head. Sometimes you can feel minimized when you try and help an addict. Sometimes it can be almost too tough, but Angela never quit. Angela, thank you for what you've shared. Tell us about Brian and how that relationship, tell us the story. You know what to say.
Well, when we first got together, it was kind of out of a, how do I want to say this? Like, we were just having fun, and I didn't see, he was really good at hiding the fact that he was drinking so much every single day. And his drink of choice was pure vodka, right out of the bottle. And he was really good at hiding that bottle. And so when we first got together, he seemed to have it, I mean, I'm not going to say all together, but, you know, it was difficult to see what he was doing on that day-to-day basis, especially because I worked full time. So, you know, I wasn't home with him all day long. So I didn't see what he was doing all day long. And at some point, obviously, I realized. And I think it was when I really started realizing it was when I was the one buying it all. When I was the one going and actually spending all the money for food, for alcohol, for his cigarettes, for every little thing. He had no cable TV, so I was the one going and buying all the movies we were watching.
So he was beyond being able to work or anything at this point.
Yeah,
the addiction would just taken over his life.
You know, but at the beginning, it's kind of a long story. When he got divorced from his wife, his family thought it was the best thing to get him out of the business because they were afraid his ex-wife would get a part of that company. And so they made it sound like down the road they would bring him back. And that's all he ever wanted. He just wanted to go back and work for the family business. He knew nothing else. Or I should say, he didn't think he was qualified for anything else. He thought the family business was what he was qualified to do.
And in a sense, they pushed out his addiction.
Yes, yes. So in a sense, all of those things, it was like it pushed him further into the addiction. And it made him kind of like a hermit. He wouldn't leave his home. Rarely did we go places. And when we did, it was to go get food and bring it back.
Then what happened? When did it start really spiraling downhill? Because things got really bad.
There was a lot of instances. You know, one night when I wanted to go up and see some friends of mine uptown, we went up and somebody hit him with a bottle over the head, and he went down and almost died. Went into the hospital for days. It was actually on my daughter's birthday when all this took place, and I couldn't even hardly spend time with my daughter on her birthday because I couldn't leave the hospital because I didn't know if he was going to make it or not. And then maybe a year from that, he started turning yellow. And he started just swelling up like crazy. So I took him up to Rochester, and he was in that hospital for probably about a week. I was there the whole time. I took off of work to be with him because he didn't have anybody else. Nobody was there with him. And so I couldn't I couldn't just let him be alone, because that's what the addiction did to him. I couldn't let him feel like he was lost and alone, because he was already feeling that way. And so I couldn't leave his side.
And you talked about that as a child, feeling lost and alone, having to get out of town. And there was just no place to go here.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess I thought I could help him. I really did. When he got out of that hospital, the doctors had said he needed to go with a strict diet. He needed to take vitamins. He needed to, you know, obviously stop drinking. But they said everything was repairable. So another year passes, and then all of a sudden, he got pancreatitis. And he went back in the hospital and never came home.
Almost like a surprise, he went right to hospice.
Yes, it was a shock. It was a shock. There was a lot of things I still don't understand about all that. And I don't think I ever will. He had a simple procedure that was a scope procedure done. Before that scope procedure, they were going to send him home. They said he was getting, he was actually getting, they barely needed to be in his room, let's put it that way. He was getting up and moving around on his own. They were going to send him home. And then all of a sudden they wanted to check for, because Brian's always had, because of the alcoholism, and because he used to also be addicted to ibuprofen, he developed problems in his stomach. And with that came bleeding. So they wanted to go in with a scope and see if they could find any bleeding. Well, they never found the bleeding. But yet, he was in a coma for 2 days. And they never explained why any of that happened. But after the fact, he was so dehydrated that his ammonia levels just wouldn't drop at first. So they put him on all this medicine, and finally his ammonia levels started decreasing. But as to why, and because they told me on the Friday that they put him in hospice, they told me that all his vitals were improving. So as to why they chose hospice, I don't know.
Thank you for sharing that. We'll come back after the break. We're going to invite Angela to share some ideas and advice she feels can help people better understand living with substance abuse and addiction in the home. Maybe her advice will help you save the life of someone you love. Children see magic in the world around them, and parents see the dangers.
There is hope for the future if we face it together.
Find out more about how you can protect your children from the risks of illegal drugs, prescription medications, and alcohol.
Go to drugfreeiowa.org.
I'm Quinn. At Mediacom, we believe customer service should be as simple as possible. So simple, in fact, you don't even have to dial a phone. All you need is our mobile care app, and you can request a call from a customer service agent, manage appointments, check for neighborhood outages, look up account info, and even reset equipment. And the best part, the mobile care app is absolutely free. The power to connect, right at your fingertips. The power to simplify.
You wouldn't walk through the halls of your school naked, yet without thinking. Many teens sext explicit photos of themselves to friends using cell phones, never thinking it'll go further. But once you hit send, you're exposed. You're out there in cyberspace for everyone to see. Sexting, it's dumb, it's dangerous, and it's against the law.
Watching your sister go through withdrawal is the last thing you expect to do. You hope she gets past it, but worry she'll relapse. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
That's 2 out of 3.
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad with our special guest, Angela. She's sharing a powerful story, and now she's going to share some insights and advice with you. Pay close attention. It could make a difference in your life and the life of someone you love. Angela, welcome back.
Thank you. I guess I would just want to say that, you know, just because people are addicted to alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, you know, whatever that addiction entails, doesn't mean they themselves are bad. Everybody in this world needs love, and just don't turn your backs on them. I know it's difficult. You want to just say, I give up. And there was many days I wanted to say, I give up. But I couldn't give up on him. Every day I looked at him, I could not give up on him. And I would not change any of the last 4 years for nothing. I guess I learned the true value of love and compassion. And I want the world to know that we have to fight for people. We have to help people. We can't just say, I'm sorry, but you're on your own.
Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. And thank you very much for joining us on Surviving Bad. Stay tuned for future episodes of Surviving Bad on Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.